You're listening to the Monday Night Community Show with Daniel on BRFM.
This is the Daniel Monday Night Community Show on demand through YouTube. Thank you very much for choosing to listen to us through this method. If you'd like to keep up to date with when I add new interviews, then subscribe to this channel. So we are joined with Ian Goodwin from the Sheppey Coastguard, our regular guest here at the Monday Night Community Show. Ian, as always, it's great to have the chance to speak to you.
Yeah, thanks very much for inviting me on again. Sorry it's a little recording, but obviously work commitments. I've got to go, but by the time this gets broadcast, I'll be in Oxford. But I just wanted to give you a little overview about Her Majesty's Coastguard and how it fits in with the Maritime and Coastguard Agency. Her Majesty's Coastguard is an integral part of the Maritime and Coastguard Agency, which we call the MCA, which is an executive agency within the Department of Transport. Now, the Maritime and Coastguard Agency aims are to develop, promote and enforce high standards of maritime safety and accident prevention, minimise loss of life amongst seafarers and coastal users, and minimise pollution from ships to the sea and coastline. In essence, our motto is safer lives, safer ships, cleaner seas. Now, the Maritime and Coastguard Agency response to emergencies is undertaken by Her Majesty's Coastguard, which is the authority responsible for the initiation and coordination of civil maritime search and rescue within the UK search and rescue region, which is quite extensive. It's all the way around the coast and extends 1,000 miles into the Atlantic. And this includes the mobilisation, organisation and tasking of adequate resources to respond to persons either in distress at sea or on designated inland waters, or to persons at risk of injury or death on the cliffs or shoreline in the UK. And at Sheppey, we get to deal with quite a wide variety of incidents, whether they're related to searches for missing people, trying to find people who are stuck on cliffs and doing a cliff rescue, or we actually do mud rescue as well. And we've just been recently, I say recently, within the last year or two, trained on fast water rescue as well. Now, Her Majesty's Coastguard is organised into search and rescue areas, and within those search and rescue areas there are what we call the Maritime Rescue Coordination Centres, and they share a common command and control and communication system which enables them to assume control of an area and to provide mutual support and resilience during emergency response operations. Now, each area is actually divided into a number of sectors, and each sector contains 3 or more what we call volunteer coastguard rescue teams, which is what I'm part of, and I'm part of the Sheppey team. And the sectors and the coastguard rescue teams are managed by a sector manager, who in this particular instance is Colin Ingram, who is a full-time Coast Guard officer, and each coastal rescue team is supervised locally by a station officer, which is Nigel Woolley, who reports to the sector manager. And these volunteer Coast Guard rescue teams, which I'm part of, are situated at various locations around the coast, and we are equipped to deal with incidents appropriate to the risks associated to the local coastal terrain and local shoreline activities and conditions. And that's why we're both a mud and a cliff team, as well as a search team and a fast water rescue. And we are capable to investigate, undertake surveillance and report in various locations to the what we call Thames Coast Guard, which is the Maritime Rescue and Coordination Centre. And in essence, our role is my particular role is a volunteer Coast Guard rescue officer, and we form part of a team who are trained and equipped to respond flexibly to varying challenges that you could face. And any operation involving a rescue or a missing person search must be carried out as a team, not as an individual or a collection of individuals. And as a result of that, we do train to make sure our competency levels are up to speed.
We are at the moment talking to Ian Goodwin from the Sheppey Coastguards right here at BRFM 95.6. So we are talking to Ian Goodwin from the Sheppey Coastguard at the moment. Ian, I know one of the things we always like to cover is safety advice.
Yeah, well, I thought I'd focus on, strangely enough, the weather and tides this time, because as you know, being sad, I actually went out, when was it, Wednesday or Thursday morning? I went out and made sure just to ensure that all the floodgates were closed, and I actually got up at 2:15 in the morning to go and look at the surge tide. It wasn't quite as bad as I expected it to be, although it was quite high. But in terms of the weather, in terms of safety advice, always check the weather before you set off on particularly in a vessel, and get regular updates if you're planning to be out for any length of time. And I'm really specifically talking about people at sea now. And be prepared to change your plans or cancel the trip if the forecast is unfavourable. Now, you wouldn't want to be going out on Wednesday night in the early hours of Thursday morning. It wasn't particularly nice. And in addition to national and local radio and TV forecasts, there is a selection of best places to get the weather information. You can get the shipping forecasts on BBC Radio 4 or 198 long wave or 92 to 105 FM. Her Majesty Coastguard broadcasts weather forecasts on VHF radio on various channels following an announcement on Channel 16. You can go on to www.metoffice.gov.uk, which is the Met Office. Many harbours and marine offices display a forecast. You can go to Navtex receivers, which provide printed forecasts and navigational information from radio signals. And there are a huge amount of websites. I mean, the one I like to use is, obviously, I like to use the Isle of Sheppey Sailing Club website because it's alive and it gives you an update and it points you into the right direction for particular forecasts, which include things like Wind Guru, so you can actually see the actual tide states, the sort of heights of the wave states, the height of the waves when the tides are coming in, what wind conditions there are. So no excuse really if you don't actually check the weather when you go out. And finally, tides. It's very important to ensure that your plans fit in with the tidal predictions for the day of your trip. Now, most slipways and launch sites are tidal, and that's no different on the Isle of Sheppey. And there are a couple of launch sites. One is at the Shingle Banks, which is the obvious ones, and one at the Isle of Sheppey Sailing Club. And you must check the times of high and low water and assess how they will affect you when you launch and later when you come home. There's no point coming home and the tide's way out and the launch ramp is a long way off because you've got a lot of sand and mud to drag your vessel over, and you're not going to be able to get your vehicle down there. And a lot of people think they can get the vehicle down there and the vehicle gets stuck. If the tide turns to a wind against tide direction, the sea may become much rougher. An ebbing tide may create dangerous areas of shallow water. Check whether it's a neap or a spring tide. That's basically to do with the orientation of the moon with respect to the earth, and that determines how far the tide comes in and out. And beware of harbour entrances where tidal streams can be fast flowing. And you would have been, well, I don't know if you missed the fact that there was a tidal surge, and in essence what that is we had northerly winds coming down, quite strong northerly winds, and what they'd have a tendency to do is to push the water towards the coast, and where we had a predicted tide of say X metres, on Thursday, the predicted tide at Sheerness was X plus 0.93 metres. So the high water at that particular point in time was about 6 metres. And, that's pretty high for Sheppey because it was almost on the spring tide. And then to have another metre almost on top of that was quite substantial. But places like Whitstable and Herne Bay, I knew they were over 2 metres above the normal height. Well, that's 6 foot, over 6 foot. And that's, if it's coming up to the harbour and you put another 6 foot on that, that's why areas flooded. And obviously we've seen the consequences of that.
We are at the moment talking to Ian Goodwin from the Sheppey Coastguard right here at BRFM. We are at the moment talking to Ian Goodwin from the Sheppey Coastguard right here at BRFM on the Monday Night Community Show. Ian, could we cover the incidents next?
Yeah, We've had a few, not many, fortunately, because obviously it's a quieter time of the year for us. On Tuesday the 10th of September at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, we were tasked to Beach Street following a report of a person in the water. Now, there was extensive search undertaken by the Coast Guard, the police, the Coast Guard helicopter from the Solent, the inshore and all-weather lifeboats, and that search took place from the Isle of Sheppey Sailing Club to Garrison Point, and nothing untoward was found, which was good news. Saturday the 21st of September at 16:30 hours, that's 4:30 in the afternoon, we were tasked to Chetney Marshes following a report of 2 persons on 2 jet skis, both with engine failure. I was actually involved in this one, and we recovered the casualties, the inshore lifeboat did, and they were actually near what we call Deadman's Island, which is out of bounds to everyone. You need special permission. It's where all the Napoleonic French prisoners are buried, and they were returned to King's Ferry, and the jet skis were actually anchored and secured and were recovered the next day. In October, Tuesday the 22nd, we were tasked to King's Ferry Bridge to rendezvous with the police. There was a report of a despondent female who was threatening to actually throw herself off the bridge. The Sheerness inshore lifeboat searched under the bridge. Unfortunately, the police found the casualty at Queenborough railway station and apprehended her, and she was then taken into the custody of the police, so all's well that ends well there. Thursday the 23rd, there was a report of a missing dog off Minster Beach. We always go to look for animals because the owners have a tendency to go in and rescue them, and then unfortunately they get into difficulties. But we did find the dog safe and well. Saturday the 26th of October, bizarre incident this was. This was a chap who come over from Spain, bought a boat at Gillingham, set off with basically nothing on board, to set off to sail a vessel which he had no experience on, back to Spain. And the boat started to leak when he got near Sheppey. Right. And he was located by the Coast Guard and rescued by the Sheerness lifeboat. And the actual boat he then sold immediately. So he'd only had the vessel about 8 hours, and then allegedly he got back on a flight to Spain. So all things happen around the Isle of Sheppey. And on Sunday the 27th of October, we were tasked to Herne Bay to assist the local Coast Guards in the recovery of a female stuck in mud near the pier, and she was extricated from the mud, all safe and well. And the only 2 incidents we've had so far in November, one was on November the 5th. There was a report of a flare, but it could have well been a rocket. Nothing untoward was found in the Queenborough area. And the final one, we were team-paged last week actually, to actually go to Herne Bay to assist in another mud rescue, but again that casualty was rescued safe and well. And that's it. So all that's left for me to do is to wish all your listeners a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I'll speak to you all again probably sometime in February, Daniel.
Yeah, you probably will. Have a good Christmas yourself as well.
Thank you very much.